the most underrated fitness influencer, and the most underrated fitness videos. So most gym rats spend a lot of their spare time immersed in the online fitness space, known as the fitness industry. It should really be called the aesthetics industry, since most of these guys, I guarantee, can't run a kilometer, myself included. I haven't done a solid run since the basketball days. Anyway, point is, there's a giant circle of fit people online using social media to get their brand name out. Some are more famous than others, and despite how saturated it is, there always seems to be room for one more, which is good news for any aspiring fitness fanatics. Now, each person is unique in their own way. Some are funnier, some are better looking, some are more informative. However, amongst all the hype and the fame, there's one fitness influencer that isn't as appreciated as I think he should be. He was sort of low-key when I found him, but recently I've seen him doing some collabs with more well-known names in the industry. This guy is mostly responsible for my current knowledge on nutrition. I didn't get all of my info from him, but he was the one who sparked the idea to look into my diet more. In 2019, one of my favorite things to do was to sit down in the lounge room, play some Spyro Reignited Trilogy, eat a bowl of red meat and rice whilst listening to one of this guy's videos. He's also got some great videos on the perspective of life and is accomplished outside of the fitness space. Someone who levels up their other stats in the game of life rather than just their fitness. The name of this guy is Stan Efferding. Now, I'm not sure how many of my audience would know this guy well enough, but recently he's done podcasts with More Plates, More Dates and Chris Williamson. So it's great to see his name is getting out there, but I'm not sure how many people are aware of his Rhinos Rants series. These were the videos I was just talking about, where I sat down eating red meat and rice whilst playing Sparrow. I would listen to all of the Rhino Rants. Rhino is Stan's nickname, or at least it was. I don't know anymore since I'm not as immersed in the fitness space. But either way, his Rhinos Rants are the most underrated series of videos on the internet in my opinion. These videos helped shape a good chunk of what I do. They're very informative, and even some stuff that Stan has been through is great advice that you can apply to your own life. So I could keep talking about how great and underrated his advice is, but I'm going to instead just play some of my favorite Rhinos Rants and then give my reaction to them. Here is one of my all-time favorites.
But that's all I did. Work, eat, sleep, train. I never went out. I never drank. I never missed a workout or a meal. My entire life revolved around bodybuilding and powerlifting. Then one day in 1997, I had a reality check. I used to train with IFBB pro Aaron Madron, who's an absolute freak. Enormous full round arms over 21 inches, quads over 32 inches, calves were over 21 inches. And he looked incredible. Long muscle bellies, great sweeps, thick veins running through his biceps and legs. He even graced the cover of Muscle and Fitness and a number of other magazines. Even though I had trained and competed with Aaron since he was 18 years old, we were posing one day after training and it just hit me like a wave. No matter how hard I worked, I was never going to look like that. And although I loved training, competing in bodybuilding and powerlifting would never be a career. I was 30 years old and broke. But hey, I had a room full of plastic trophies. So I made a decision right there to stop competing and start focusing on my career. It was an aha moment for me, the beginning of my future. Although I continued lifting, I cut down to 2 or 3 workouts a week, drastically reduced calories, and completely stopped using performance-enhancing drugs, which remained the case until I returned to competition over 10 years later.
So basically, he says, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I don't have those genes. I won't be the best. But hey, look, I have some plastic trophies. Yeah, I don't have money or a career, investments, a business, anything, but my biceps are a few inches bigger than the average male. It goes back to a saying I heard a while ago that is hilariously true. Congratulations on being the cool kid in high school. Sorry about the rest of your life though. It's like that, but instead it's congratulations on having slightly bigger biceps than me. Sorry about the rest of your life though. It's important to realize that securing the bag is more important than how much you can bench. I know a guy from high school, shredded as anything, huge biceps, full-on gym rat, but he worked part-time at a fast food establishment even when he was 24. I have no clue what he's doing now. He stopped posting all of his fitness stuff after COVID. I think the word on the grapevine is he actually lost a lot of his progress due to the lockdowns, because here in Victoria, we had a lot more lockdowns than usual, so the lockdowns means the gyms are shut. And he wasn't one of the people who had home gyms either. And even then, you got in trouble for going to other people's houses. It was a crazy time. So it's sad to see. He's still probably fitter than the average person, but what did it cost him? A lot. It goes back to my optimal routine video. Gym shouldn't take up that much time in your life. Use some of your other spare time to secure the bag. It doesn't matter how hard you work in fitness, there's someone with better genetics out there. Now, that's not to say you should give up on it. You should still work on your fitness and do anything related to a brand/business on the side of another source of income. But keep in mind that genetics play a huge role in the fitness industry, which is exactly what Stan realized after a while. From there, he went on to have a great career and made some good income. Here's another great clip.
Methods that seek to restore blood flow where mobility is an issue and impingement may exist. Impingement isn't tantamount to immobilization. An impingement is a loss of movement and or a restriction of nerves or blood vessels. Whenever you immobilize a joint or muscle, or restrict its blood flow or nerve activity, the muscles atrophy. Just look what happens when you put on an ankle brace or wear a cast. Immediate atrophy and loss of mobility. Movement through a full range of motion and restoring blood flow is key for recovery. Blood flow is everything. What you may perceive to be an injury could very well be a mobility problem, causing poor movement patterns that's unnecessarily placing stress on a joint and not allowing for adequate recovery due to restricted blood flow. Recovery is the only reason I can still train hard without pain now that I'm almost 50. Movement is key. When my 86-year-old dad got hip replacement surgery, they had him up using a walker the next morning. When Eric Spoto had his shoulder surgery, they sent him home with a machine that moved his arm in circles for many hours a day. Now, 15 years ago, when one of my athletes got knee surgery, the surgeon sent him home with a compression cuff hooked to an ice machine. It immobilized and froze the area, and guess what happened? It didn't heal. At most top colleges and professional sports facilities, there are submersion treadmills or harnesses to allow athletes to move injured muscles and joints under reduced loads so they'll heal faster. The key again is movement. The heart pumps the blood full of nutrients, which helps repair the damaged muscles and joints. Acute inflammation is good. It's part of the body's natural response that initiates healing. The lymphatic system rids the body of toxins and waste. Unlike the heart, which pumps blood throughout the body, the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It relies on muscular contractions or movement to help rid the body of waste materials. Oftentimes when I was too tired or too lazy to do active recovery, and I would just sit or lay down or sleep, I would wake up feeling like I was in a car accident. My muscle soreness would be more intense and last longer than if I would have simply performed my active recovery sessions. Active recovery method that doesn't send the wrong signal to the body. For me, I would use HIIT style active recovery under moderate loads and try to utilize mostly concentric movements and avoid eccentric loads that may further break down the muscle I'm trying to heal. It's important for progress to allow the hypertrophy phase to complete. Let the muscles heal and adapt to the stress by getting bigger and stronger, and then hit them with more stress. To be specific, the day after leg day, when I wake up, I'll perform 30-second sprints on a recumbent bike under moderate tension with 1-minute rests. I'll do about 10 or 12 of these. I'm able to pump a lot of blood into the muscle without breaking down muscle tissue and without using an endurance stimulus. It drastically speeds up the rate of healing for my knees and leg muscles, and it only takes 10 minutes. When I was competing in power, active recovery should get your heart rate up. It should require you to move through a full range of motion. It should pump up the muscles and draw blood to the joints. It should make you sweat. And it should be, as recovery goes, hard. So quit doing the easy shit and start doing the hard shit that works. Move your body when it needs it, and your body will move you when you need it. Well, that's my rant.
This is a fantastic piece of advice. I see everywhere people doing cold baths, suction cup massages, massage guns, all this other random stuff in order to enhance recovery. Have you tried moving more? Brisk walking to get your blood flow moving? All that extra time and money spent on new methods to recover when you could have legit just walked more. Here's another one.
After reading all those programs and speaking and training with many of their creators and talking to lots of the West Side lifters, I believe the real secret to their success is they just worked harder. They were in a savage gym with a savage coach surrounded by savage lifters, and they trained like savages. I'm sure you're starting to see recurring themes in many of these rants that where all the easy gains are gone after the first 3 to 6 months, and the real work begins as you get closer and closer to your goal or hit your first plateau. The next level gets harder and harder to achieve, and no supplement's going to solve that problem. No fancy program's going to solve that problem. Ultimately, it's going to come down to how hard are you willing to work? How much are you willing to sacrifice? The vast majority of time, people drastically overestimate how hard they work, or they confuse a lot of work with hard work, and they're not the same. Start a program or set a goal or select a date for their competition also tend to plug many of the gaping holes in their game at the same time. In the strength game, 1 + 1 = 5. The more disciplines you improve, the more results you realize. They tend to sleep better, eat better, implement a recovery program, and simply start to train harder. People ask me all the time if I'm going to compete again, and I just repeat what I heard Eddie Cohn say one time. I just don't want to work that hard anymore. I don't want to go through that much pain. Many times I've done seminars, I've spent 2 hours talking about training and diet and answering dozens of questions, and I've sat back in my chair and reflected on all the things that I've discussed. And I take a long look at the audience and I take a deep breath and I just say, you know what? At the end of the day, the best just wanted it more. They just sacrificed more. They just suffered more. And that's the message I really think that gets lost in all the debates over the details. You want to be a savage? Ditch the beast mode hat and selfies and start training like a savage. The bar is loaded. Shut up and squat.
The best just want it more. Facts. Yeah, you do have roadblocks and stuff, and I see a lot of people talking about how they find it hard to go to the gym when they get a full-time job. I agree, it does get tougher, but the best just want it more. You'll find a way. I literally only have about 2.5 hours of free time each night I decide to go to the gym, and most of that 2.5 hours is gobbled up by a shower and dinner, and my nightly walk, but I still choose to gym. I could have an extra 2+ hours free each night instead of going to the gym, since there goes the detour to the gym and the extra shower required. So why do I still gym? I've got plenty enough in my life without gym as is, because the best just want it more. As much as I would like to increase my other stats more, I also want my aesthetic stat to rise. The best just want it more. Here's a good clip on vitamin D.
Bait and switch here, but hear me out, because there's an important hormone that's actually a steroid, which I believe has wrongly been labeled as a vitamin. Now, I'm not a big supplement guy. You've never once heard me extol the virtues of a protein powder or pre-workout, and I've never suggested megadosing vitamins. I'm a big believer when it comes to supplementing this particular hormone, and that hormone is vitamin D. And I've always said I believe in eating your food first and foremost. The challenge with vitamin D is that it's not in too many foods. If you're a clean eater, you're probably not eating many vitamin D fortified foods like cereal and milk. Now, vitamin D can be found in fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and cod liver oil, but it's not likely you're eating enough of those to satisfy your requirements. Vitamin D is primarily synthesized by the skin through sun exposure. Now, I'm from Oregon, and I lived in Seattle for 15 years, and there's a high incidence of depression and suicide, presumed to be due to a lack of sun exposure because of the often overcast and rainy weather. So I've always supplemented vitamin D, which is why I was so surprised about the story I want to share with you. Vitamin D helps improve absorption of many important minerals, such as calcium and iron, magnesium and zinc. So if you're supplementing any of those, vitamin D is a must. Vitamin D also helps your immune system fight off infections. So here's my vitamin D story. Last fall and into the winter, I started feeling tired and weak. I wasn't waking up energized, and I wasn't recovering very fast from workouts. And the weight started feeling heavy on my body, almost like my bones were aching. You know how important blood tests are to me. And I've been ordering blood tests online through private MD labs for many years. There's two types of vitamin D tests. Be sure to order the vitamin D25 hydroxy test. It measures the amount of vitamin D in the bloodstream.
This is where my getting sunlight thing started. If you've seen some of my earlier Week in the Life videos, you'll know I have some time allocated to get sunlight during work breaks, or if I'm home during the summer months on time, since in the winter here in Australia, the sun is gone by the time I'm home. So thanks for the tidbit, Stan. Next clip.
When I was 12 years old, I worked at 7-Eleven. When school got out, I'd walk to work, and my lunch would consist of a hot dog and a soda. And during the shift when I got hungry, I'd drink more sodas and Slurpees and snack on nachos with some of that runny imitation cheese-looking substance that was pumped out of a can. I kept very busy mopping floors, stocking coolers and shelves, and I'd often work until 11 o'clock or midnight and then walk home. I remember watching Welcome Back, Kotter with my mom just before I went to bed, so oftentimes I wouldn't get to sleep till 1 o'clock in the morning. And at 6:30 a.m., my alarm would go off, start the next school day, and I'd do it all over again. I ran hard from sunup to sundown, and that's the way I liked it. I begged for that job. I made $2 an hour, but at 12 years old, I was living large. When I was 14, my mom got a job managing a bakery, so after school, I'd walk to the bakery and I'd work there. Of course, lunch and dinner consisted of a maple bar or two and some more soda. It was no easy job. I had large metal baking trays that were stacked taller than me, and they had to be scrubbed with steel wool and water so hot that my hands would turn numb. The wood tables and floors had to be scraped with a metal blade. All the sugar and flour was dried like concrete. And then during soccer season and wrestling season, I'd go to practice, and then I'd go to work, and I'd eat another donut or two, and I'd wash that down with another soda. The point is, I worked hard, and I ate like shit.
This clip was just nice to hear. I like hearing when others are on the grind. Next up.
For Kentucky, Ohio State, and Tennessee, they're not drinking protein shakes. These kids are growing up on real farm food. These kids eat plenty of cholesterol-based animal fats and proteins. Now, if you're like a lot of parents, you cringe when I say the word cholesterol. It still, to this day, has such a negative connotation due to Ansel Keys' bogus, discredited research associating it with cardiovascular disease. I used to coach high school soccer, and I've trained high school, collegiate, and professional athletes for 25 years. Over that time, I've had the opportunity to see the nutritional environment change drastically. When I used to recommend red meat, eggs, and dairy to young athletes, oftentimes parents would be reluctant to feed their kids this food. They were afraid of cholesterol and fats. They thought it was bad for them. But the fact is, those are the first foods I recommend for young athletes. Cholesterol is hugely important. It's what's responsible for manufacturing testosterone in the body. That's why I prefer cholesterol-based animal fats as the primary source of proteins and fats, as opposed to processed vegetable fats and nut butters. Animal fats are great for athletes. And while the paragons of health continue to whine about milk, I just refer them to Rich Froning, 4-time Reebok national champion, the world's fittest man. He drinks a gallon of whole milk a day. The bad fats are the processed vegetable oils, such as soy, peanut, corn, safflower, sunflower, and canola oil. The ones that have been refined. They tend to be high in omega-6s, and they're highly susceptible to oxidation during processing, which makes them react and are damaging to the body. I'd never replace animal fats with any of these oils. I hate demonizing foods, but I think these oils are poison. The sad fact is that they're in everything. Mayonnaise is one of the worst. The first ingredient is canola oil. Deep fried foods are equally as horrible. Mark was way ahead of his time. He knew more about nutrition and bodybuilding in 1988 than most trainers I meet today, almost 30 years later. He also had a huge influence on the success of IFBB pro Aaron Madron. Now, the advice was simple, and it still works today. Load up on those farm foods and train with the heavy basics. Done.
So, Stan talks about the benefits of farm foods, mostly carnivore diet-related stuff. He was onto it before everyone else was. I'll talk about why I don't go full carnivore in the future, but just for your information, Stan was on the benefits of meats early, even before Paul Saladino was, if I recall correctly.
After a year of this, I realized I was a hot mess of stress, anxiety, and miserable health. I was weak, tired, and sick far too often. I remember browsing through Barnes & Noble one year, and I happened upon a book called Stress for Success by Jim Lohr. And it won't come as any surprise that nearly the entire book was about the importance of adequate sleep, a healthy diet, and regular exercise. As I said, stress is unavoidable. How prepared you are to deal with it is what makes all the difference. If you're healthy, you can win those battles. If you're not, you will lose. You have to pay yourself first. When you start sacrificing what your body needs to perform, like sleep, good nutrition, and exercise, then you will start to suffer. And when you start to suffer, your business suffers, your relationships suffer, everything suffers. For some, this would be a matter of life or death. I've had 2 different workaholic bosses die from stress-related diseases, one from a heart attack and the other from alcoholism. You would never prepare for any sport by not sleeping, eating, or training. And you can't compete in the game of life without doing the same.
This clip was about managing stress. The gist of it, sleep, diet, and exercise. I see too many Sigmas out there talking about sleeping less to get more work done. Well, the quality of your work suffers when you don't have as much sleep. Maybe they don't have a standard job/career, but I can tell you, as someone who works 7 days a week, one job being a career, one job being a minimum wage job, whenever I have crappy sleep, each day of work is a grueling struggle. My primary/secure income sources may be adversely affected. Like, yeah, I probably wouldn't get fired for underperformance, but it could hurt any future promotions, as is the case with my accounting job, or it could hurt me getting favors with my managers at the supermarket. But irrespective of that, if I had crap sleep 7 days a week, I'd be in hell. Each day would be a huge drag to get through. So no, you need your sleep. Everyone is probably aware of sleeping tips and tricks like a cool dark room, soft pillows, whatever. Some say no phone screen time either. I'm literally on my phone watching/listening to stuff within 5 minutes of falling asleep. My trick is CBD products. Try them out. They help with sleep. As for diet, pick a diet that contains all the vitamins and minerals your body needs to function. Lucky for you listening, you've got 2 great diet resources in this one video. You can go with Stan Efferding's vertical diet or gamification of life's gamification diet? I don't know, I'll come up with some fancy name later. Pick your diet, try them out, see how they improve your energy/stress levels.
A better way. The nutrition methods I learned from Flex Wheeler back in 2008 are the single most important reason for my success in becoming a pro bodybuilder and a world record powerlifter. Flex believed that you could train your body to efficiently digest and utilize more and more food using a progressive overload method, much the same way we train for strength. If you bench press 300 pounds and you want to add 100 pounds to your bench, you can't go to the gym tomorrow, load 400 pounds on the bar, and ask for a lift-off. The same is true when it comes to calories. If you're eating 3,000 calories a day, You can't just start Ronnie Coleman's 7,000 calorie diet tomorrow. You'll never be able to handle that much food. When lifting weights, your body doesn't know sets and reps, and the amount of weight is all relative. Same with your diet. Whatever amount of food fills you up, that's your max. I'll speak to types of foods later, but for now let's just focus on calories, because maintaining a calorie surplus is the single most important factor in trying to gain weight. The macros are a distant second. That's why, as I get more and more specific about the types of foods I think you should eat to maximize performance, the one overriding principle will continue to be calories first. This is why I always say that something is better than nothing when eating to gain mass. Details of the diet. We started with the typical 5 meals a day, 4 meals with 8 ounces of steak or bison, and 1 meal with chicken breast after training to keep the fats down. Carbs were 100 grams per meal, maybe oats for breakfast, potatoes or white rice for the other meals. The fats were already in the steak, so none were added. And we threw in a serving of vegetables with a couple of the meals. Now that added up to about 4,000 calories, 250 grams of protein, 500 grams of carbs, and 100 grams of fats. Flex told me to call him back when I was hungry. I was easily able to handle that much food, so I ran with it for a week, and I called him. And he said, add another meal and call me when you're hungry again. So I added another meal, which filled me up, but within 2 weeks I was getting hungry again between meals. I called Flex and he said add 2 ounces of meat and another 25 grams of carbs to each meal, then call me back when you're hungry. So now we're at 6 meals, 10 ounces of steak each meal, except chicken breast post-workout, and 125 grams of carbs each day. That's about 6,000 calories, including 60 ounces of meat, 500 grams of protein, 750 grams of carbs, and 120 grams of fat. He said if I had a hard time eating that much food in one sitting, then I could do 8 ounces of meat and 100 grams of carbs, but add a 7th meal. Either way, there's a lot of food, and I wasn't bloated with extra fats and sauces, so I was able to eat it all. Initially it was hard, but the longer I stuck with it, the less full I became, and the sooner I was hungry again. I showed up in San Jose to train with Flex weighing over 270 pounds at 10% body fat. Historically, with my high-fat seafood diet, I would have been closer to 20% body fat and would have had to start cutting calories and doing cardio, and I'd begin to quickly lose weight immediately and end up at 235 pounds on stage. By using the cleaner foods and gradually introducing them, I was much leaner at 270 pounds, and when Flex started me in on the twice-a-day training program, I didn't have to cut any calories at all, and I began hardening up without losing weight. The extra volume, both in terms of training frequency as well as more sets and reps, led to even more muscle growth during contest prep while I was losing body fat on 6,000 calories a day. The only adjustment we made was to have 2 chicken breast meals, one after each workout, in place of steak, where we believed that the lower fat would speed up the post-workout carb intake. People always assume that I must have been on the shitter all the time for eating that much food, particularly from eating over 4 pounds of meat a day. But the truth is just the opposite. Since the food I was eating was so bioavailable, and my system got so efficient at digesting the same foods, and my workload was so high, I was burning almost everything I ate with much less waste. After about 6 weeks of steady progress leaning out, we reduced carbs from 125 grams a meal to 100 grams. Then I dieted the rest of the way into the show on 5,500 calories a day and weighed 255 pounds a week out and 252 on stage after water depletion. I had only lost 15 pounds in 10 weeks and had the best combination of size and conditioning I ever brought to stage.
So this one is interesting. Sounds very broscience-y, but I've noticed this myself, to be honest. During my uni days, when I'd have heaps of white rice, I would be well over what would usually be considered my caloric maintenance. And yet, my weight barely moved up. Doing the math, I should have gained at least like half a kilo over a certain time span on average, but I only gained like 100 grams. Why? Well, perhaps this training your metabolism thing explains it. I'm aware that as you get heavier, your metabolic rate increases since there's more of your body, so you require more food/fuel to keep it going. A truck uses more fuel than a motorbike. An elephant requires more food than a mouse. But that doesn't explain the huge leap in calories from the white rice I was consuming. I accounted for stuff like water weight, etc. I said certain time span on average. And I've done enough diets in the past to know how to track weight/calories correctly. The only variable that could explain my lack of weight gain, despite the drastically higher calories, is this training your metabolism thing. Again, I know it sounds broscience-y, but I've also had this kind of experience before, where I should have gained a lot more weight than I did, but I didn't.
Pack for a while, so they can put on some extra muscle. And then if they can maintain that new body weight and create a new set point for themselves, then their body will begin to harden at that new heavier weight. The constant process of gaining a little bit of weight and quickly dieting it off so you can have a photo shoot every weekend won't yield long-term results or muscular gain.
Another bro-sciencey one, but it has also happened to me before, except it happens at a lower body fat. Whenever I have done a deep cut, I basically gained a couple of kilos back and maintained at that weight for a month, and I've looked more shredded afterwards, despite literally being the same weight. Try it for yourself. Next time you have a deep cut, go back up 1 to 2 kilos, then hold that new weight for a month.
About the real poison that's killing us. I stirred up a bit of controversy recently for my rant promoting the consumption of fatty farm foods such as red meats, eggs, real butter, whole milk, and chicken thigh. It's no secret, I'm a firm believer that farm foods are ideal for optimizing athletic performance. Unfortunately, there's still plenty of misinformed people who believe that animal fats and proteins cause heart disease. Once again, I've attached Chris Kresser's link to his free ebook, The Diet Heart Myth, which very clearly lays out the facts regarding the benefits of animal proteins and saturated fats, and dispels the pervasive myths associating them with coronary heart disease. I encourage you to read it. Chris is highly regarded in the health and fitness industry, and his ebook reviews 50 years of research and presents more recent and higher quality evidence demonstrating the following. Number 1, high cholesterol is not the primary cause of heart disease. Number 2, diets high in saturated fat and cholesterol don't cause heart disease. 3, consumption of so-called heart-healthy vegetable oils is linked to heart disease. And number 4, statin drugs don't reduce the risk of death for most people and have dangerous side effects and complications, which I addressed in my last rant, 5 medications that will make you weak. What's truly tragic about the myth of consuming animal proteins and fats is the misguided and downright dishonest effort by researchers as well as our government to promote a healthy alternative to animal fats where one is not needed. And worse yet, for that healthy alternative to be the real poison, which is proven to be the true cause of coronary heart disease. That poison is processed vegetable oils, and the truth behind the bogus science, the government corruption, and the vegetable oil industry is insidious. These aren't well-intentioned but clueless bureaucrats or businesses. These are people who are promoting their agenda and profiteering at the sacrifice of our health. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist that thinks the government's a boogeyman that's out to kill people. I just think they're horribly inept. And the so-called scientists supporting this idiocy are just echoing whatever conclusions that guarantee them more research money. It's right pocket, left pocket corruption. I've also attached an article that details this incompetent corruption and collusion with a chronological history of the introduction of processed vegetable oils and their negative effects on our health. The article is called The Oiling of America, written by Sally Fallon and Professor Mary Enig. The article specifically exposes the researchers and the government agencies and corporations that have been complicit in promoting these health hazardous oils. I think everyone should read this article. But if you are an athlete or a coach or a parent concerned about your child's health, you absolutely have to read this article. You will be shocked how horrible these oils are for your health. Now, I don't particularly like demonizing foods. In previous rants, I've been outspoken about the fact that you can eat just about anything and lose weight and improve your health, so long as you maintain a calorie deficit. Foods are poisonous to some people, and that doesn't make them bad for everybody. Those with a peanut allergy can die from eating peanuts. Those who have a lactose intolerance or whey allergy can get sick from consuming milk. And those with gluten allergies can become sick from eating wheat. To be fair, canola oil is a poison to me. So admittedly, I have a bias when it comes to processed vegetable oils. See, these oils are in everything. You want some scrambled eggs or hash browns at a restaurant? They're cooked in vegetable oil. How about some rotisserie chicken or grilled chicken? It's typically heavily basted in vegetable oil. Anything deep fried is an absolute vegetable oil gut bomb. Even a flat iron steak is cooked in a pool of vegetable oil. I used to love the Mongolian grill. What could be better than all you can eat fresh cuts of steak and chicken with fresh vegetables? Unfortunately, they pour canola oil on that hot grill and cook your healthy food in poison. I can't even eat most of the prepared foods at Whole Foods Market because many of them include canola oil in their ingredients, which is ironic to me because the vast majority of canola oils in the United States are from genetically modified plants. And the worst offender I mentioned in my obesity rant about the Samoan population is mayonnaise. It's loaded with canola oil. Even the healthy olive oil mayonnaise at stores has its first ingredient listed as canola oil. Please, never feed your kids mayonnaise. These oils have been the true culprits of our rising rates of obesity, heart disease, and cancer. I have to be very careful to look at the ingredients when purchasing foods and to order my foods at restaurants without oil. Only flame-grilled meats and steamed vegetables will do. Now specifically, the oils that are poison are the processed vegetable oils, such as canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower, and cottonseed oil. Oils that are chemically processed using high heat, pressure, and industrial solvents. Cottonseed oil was a discarded byproduct of soap manufacturing until Procter & Gamble decided they could make money off their waste by convincing people to eat it. In the case of canola oil, it's a GMO crop derived from the poisonous rapeseed plant. Canola isn't even a plant, it's Canadian oil. I'm not referring to cold-pressed oils such as coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, or avocado. Regular olive oil, however, can contain up to 50% canola oil. Cold-pressed oils can be healthy, but they should not be used for cooking. High heat can make them rancid. Contrary to what the coconut oil industry would have you believe, there's nothing particularly remarkable about coconut oil either. The magic of coconut oil isn't that it's some superfood. It's that when it's used in place of processed vegetable oils, people end up feeling better because they decreased or eliminated the poison they were eating. This is the same theory behind juice cleanses. It's not that you're cleansing anything, you're simply eliminating the food source that's causing you problems, long enough for your body to heal itself. Reintroduce the problem food, which is different for everyone, and the bloating and allergic symptoms recur. I've attached an amusing article about coconut oil, which is entertaining and informative, and it puts a dose of reality on the superfood status. Or maybe I just like the title. It's called Coconut Oil is for Rubbing on Your Titties. The point of the article is that we vastly overestimate the purported health benefits of some foods. Read the article. It'll help temper your enthusiasm with a healthy dose of reality. The only reason I mention it is because so long as eating cold-pressed oils prevents you from eating processed oils, that's great. But if you're deconstructing one of nature's truly powerful performance foods, such as removing the yolk from a whole egg and then cooking the egg whites in coconut oil to get some healthy fats, you're not only kidding yourself, but you're missing out on some truly nutrient-dense and power-packed high-performance food at the same time. The problem with most of the epidemiological studies of healthy remote populations that eat lots of fish and game animals is that these people ate the whole animal. They ate the eyes, the heart, the liver, the fat. They didn't cut out all the fat and acid wash some GMO corn and pour it on their food. Muscle meats are not as nutrient dense as fatty meats or organ meats. Another example is drinking coconut milk, thinking it's a healthy alternative to real milk, or almond milk, which oftentimes includes canola oil in its ingredients. If it's simply due to allergy avoidance, that's understandable. But these substitutions will do absolutely nothing to improve your athletic performance. Or how about eating boneless, skinless chicken breasts or whitefish cooked in a processed vegetable fat, when chicken thigh or salmon already has great natural fats inside of them? Here's the rub. I'm a big fan of eating healthy, an even bigger fan of exercising regularly and maintaining low body fat levels. But when we attempt to deconstruct nature's foods and reconstruct them with something we processed in a chemical manufacturing plant, we never improve the outcome. Mixing and matching a brown rice with some legumes to get a complete protein, and then trying to compare the quality of that protein to eggs or a steak is ridiculous. Eat the highest quality animal proteins and eat plenty of healthy vegetables and complex carbohydrates. It's really that simple. What is sufficient to survive versus what is optimal for an athlete to thrive is two completely different things when we're talking about performance. Every single time I put the yolks back in the egg whites, and I've used top sirloin steak in place of tilapia and peanut butter, the athletes have thrived. They've increased strength, endurance, stamina, and improved body composition every single time. And I have hundreds of emails from clients saying exactly that. We keep trying to reverse engineer our nutrition when the answer is already there to begin with. The best fats are already in the foods with the best proteins. You're not smarter than Mother Nature, so knock it off, Einstein.
Here is yet another timeless bit of advice. Seed oils being bad. More people are catching on to this these days, but Stan was one of the first to be openly talking about it. This is why I use butter on my fry pan for my eggs instead of any sort of cooking oil. Once again, Stan's advice has influenced part of my daily dietary decisions. Butter also ties into what I showed earlier about the whole farm foods thing. He also talks about how he thinks the government is horribly inept. Well, he doesn't think it, he knows it. If you're a regular of mine, you also know I know/feel this way too. It becomes more exacerbated when you start delving into the finance/stock market realm. That's when you start to learn much more about how the government just has no clue of what they're doing, even in terms of the real estate market. Here in Australia, no matter what the government does in an attempt to fix the housing crisis, they only make it worse. And in fact, I am banking on it. It's a big part of my financial stability in the future. The worse the housing crisis gets, the wealthier I become. But I have to get into the real estate market earlier. Hence the 7-day work week, which is what I talked about in my recent video on working hard in your 20s. But that's an investor stat thing. Back to the aesthetic stat. This is yet another great video in the Rhinos Rant series. Yet more proof you guys should check it out.
That I believe is the most critical and effective performance enhancer for athletes is sodium. Optimal sodium intake increases blood volume, which helps deliver more oxygen and nutrients to the cells, which helps repair and remove waste. Sodium helps increase stamina and endurance, and it allows athletes to hold more water in the muscles, which increases strength and explosiveness, and it helps improve the integrity of the joints. Enormous. Since that meet, I've had the opportunity to work closely with one of the UFC's best nutritionists and weight cut experts, George Lockhart. Now, he's worked with many of the top fighters, such as John Jones, Rory McDonald, and recently helped Cyborg win her first UFC fight. I've helped with weight cuts with professional MMA fighters and some of the greatest powerlifters in the world, such as Eric Lillybridge, Dan Green, I'm at Sapir and Brandon Lilly. And the single most important thing I focus on is sodium. Everything else follows sodium, and nothing is as important for performance. But you might ask, isn't sodium unhealthy? Absolutely not. It's quite the contrary. 3 of the largest studies ever done on sodium intake all showed that an increase in salt results in a decrease in cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. As a matter of fact, the highest rates of all-cause mortality were found in the groups that restricted sodium intake. Now, there is a small percentage of the population that's sodium sensitive, just like there are those that are lactose intolerant or have peanut allergies or gluten allergies. But the research suggests it's a small percentage that will have adverse effects from increasing their sodium intake. And those athletes should monitor the effect of sodium on their health. Now, when you initially increase your salt intake, you will realize some water retention until your body acclimates to the increased salt intake. But it will normalize and you'll begin to see all the benefits. Now, what kind of sodium should you be eating? Well, table salt is sodium chloride, so it's only about 40% sodium. And you'll get a bigger bang for your buck if you use sea salt. But don't overlook iodized table salt. Iodine is another largely misunderstood and maligned nutrient, which has important health benefits. 2 billion people worldwide suffer from iodine deficiency, which causes mental retardation, and it also causes goiter and thyroid disease. Now, iodine was added to table salt to reduce the incidence of goiter, which is an enlarged thyroid gland. Thyroid disease results in a slowed metabolism, weight gain, fatigue, and other symptoms of hypothyroidism. So before you start popping T3 like candy, consider that you may benefit from the use of iodized salt. Now, how much sodium should you take in? Well, I live in Las Vegas, and I train hard and I sweat a lot, so I salt all of my meals. I also eat a couple pieces of bacon with breakfast. I added a flavored salt tablet to every glass of water that I drink, and I snack on pickles or I eat one with meals. I try to take in 10 to 12 grams of sodium a day. Yes, that's 10,000 to 12,000 milligrams. Now, I believe athletes should take in about 4 grams for every half gallon of water that they drink. 8 grams for a gallon, 12 grams for a gallon and a half. Now, disciplined athletes or those who are dieting tend not to eat fast foods or processed foods, so they're already limiting their sodium intake. Adding to that, they drink a lot of water, which also tends to further dehydrate them by flushing out valuable minerals and electrolytes, so their performance suffers. Now, oftentimes athletes will reduce or eliminate carbs for a period of time. Water binds to carbs in the muscle, so when there's fewer carbs, there's less water. And there's an increased likelihood of cramping and decrease in performance. Now, adequate sodium intake can solve all of these problems and drastically improve performance, decrease fatigue, and increase blood volume for better recovery.
Another great one here, sodium. I have iodized table salt with my eggs and red meat every day. Why? Because of Stan. I learned the benefits of sodium and iodine thanks to this video, and it's been incorporated into my overall diet to cover every vitamin and mineral my body requires. Sodium works well in tandem with potassium, calcium, and magnesium to decrease the elevated blood pressure that people seem to think comes from higher sodium. I don't think Stan directly said this. Maybe he did in a vertical diet seminar, but I'm pretty sure I did my own homework on this myself, which is part of the reason I have my dark chocolate in the same meal I have my red meat in. The magnesium from the dark chocolate and the potassium from the sweet potatoes work in conjunction with the sodium from the salt in the red meat. I don't have much calcium at all in that meal, if any, but I'm not going to bring a glass of milk alongside this meal too. Even then, I doubt all the nutrients need to be consumed in the same meal. It just helps me hit the vitamin and mineral targets. I still have enough calcium during the day. You also need vitamin K2, so the calcium is deposited into the right tissue, which I get from egg yolks. Probably some other foods too. Spinach has vitamin K1, so it's not quite the type you need, but I have talked about all these dietary tidbits before. I probably missed some information in the 26-minute video on the only 4 meals you need, but I delved deep into this nutrition stuff in my almost 2-hour, perfect diet video. But no one wants to watch that because, ew, a video longer than 20 seconds? Icky, am I right? The information is there for you to learn. It's up to you to do that learning. But anyway, as you can probably tell from the last 2 minutes, I have a good grasp on nutrition. I may have learned a lot of this myself, but who got me started? Who got me thinking about the vitamins and minerals and how they work with each other? Who gave me some food ideas to start with, such as iodized table salt? Yep, you got it. It was Stan Efferding and his rhino rants. Funny because I heard of him through Dylan McKenna and David Lade from memory. They mentioned some vertical diet in one of their vlogs, and from there I found Stan. Funny how some brief fad going around in late 2018/early 2019 led me down the nutritional rabbit hole. So there's many more I could show you, but then I'd be just padding out watch time using someone else's content. And although I could react to everything that he says, which would be my own form of content as opposed to just using someone else's, it's best if you yourself go and watch them for yourself. Keep an open mind. You're going to hear things you haven't heard elsewhere. I mean, some things are probably more mainstream now, such as sodium is fine and seed oils are bad, but these videos were from 2016-ish, and when I found them in 2019, they were newer concepts even then. It's crazy how well the advice holds up to this day. Stan is easily the biggest influence on my nutrition, which is where a heavy majority of my knowledge around fitness is centered around. All the other lifestyle vloggers and influencers always show some generic ass, oats, Greek yogurt, salmon, some nuts. These nuts, chicken, all the same. Do these diets contain every single vitamin and mineral? I assure you, no, they don't. I might make some video series auditing the nutrition contents of the diets of other fitness influencers and where they're lacking. I caught them lacking. So in amongst the sea of yet another fake natty dude with a generic personality and no job posting his workouts and his daily vlogs that contain some breakfast, some email support with his online coaching, a gym session, maybe some shopping, that dude, coupled with some other generic fitness chick who dates around the fitness industry and whose entire personality is the size of her glutes, there is a golden nugget, someone unique, someone who is well worth your time. Yes, the others can be entertaining, but not informative in the slightest. Stan, however, absolutely the best information you'll get. He is by far the most underrated fitness influencer. Who's your favorite fitness brand/personality online? Is there anyone you think is underrated? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. That is all.